Hello folks, it's Trevor from Media Mementos, and boy do I have a story to tell you. It's been a while since we've done an episode of Moralton High, but now we're back. And we're back with a story I've wanted to tell since the very beginning. It's a tale of two very different teachers. One fun, one who did things by the books, and they came together in the most sinister way. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me explain who these people were and what they did. First, let's start with the speech and debate teacher, Mr. DuCase. He made this fun. First of all, he didn't care at all about what Moralton High said. None of the politics, none of the you are going to hell if you don't do X, Y, Z, and so forth. You know, all those things that aren't in the Bible. He really didn't care at all, and it showed. He would make fun of people that were not trying. He would be very generous with compliments with those that he felt were struggling or were nervous in his class. He would join in on a bunch of jokes, and he would let people eat lunch in his room if they felt like it and didn't want to go down to the cafeteria. And that place was a madhouse, so I always took that opportunity, and so did my friends. Everybody loved this guy. The other teacher, Miss Tuttle, she wasn't as popular. In fact, she wasn't even supposed to be there. To explain what happened, I have to introduce another member of this cast, Mr. Cool, spelled K-U-U-L. Mr. Cool was this 68, year-old teacher who was there since the beginning, and he really loved his job, and he made the students love his class. Whenever someone was complaining about something, he'd throw this barely filled beanbag at people, and it had "fit" written on it. He's like, hey, look, I'm throwing a fit at you. Whenever he was going too fast with notes, he always said, never say stop, never say help, because people won't give you the time of day. You need to scream chocolate. That'll get people's attention. Really, Mr. Cool had it all, and he was a fantastic teacher. But there was one problem. He rode his bike to work every day. And that sounds like a good thing, exercise, saving on gas, especially since the state that Moralton High is in, even to this day, still has some of the highest gas taxes in the country. But we lived in a state that, while it wouldn't get harsh winter, we'd get dangerous winter. Black ice was everywhere. Black ice, you can't see it, you can only feel it, and when you do, it's too late. Take it from someone who spun his car out in junior year because of black ice. It's not fun. So, Mr. Cool didn't notice the black ice when he hit it. But he did notice the really steep cliff he was going down that was headed into oncoming traffic. He broke several ribs, got tons of scars, and was completely knocked out. When he woke up in his hospital bed, the first thing he said is, "Who has my bike? Is my bike okay?" Legend. Unfortunately, we never saw him again. He was forced into retirement for obvious reasons. After that, and at his age, you can't really continue with this kind of line of work. So, Miss Tuttle was brought in, and she was... I got bored just thinking about her classes. She did absolutely nothing to make anything interesting. The only thing slightly noteworthy about her was that she had a pool of turtles, like a real kiddie pool, in the back of her class. Could you tell she was a science teacher? And what is it about some of the worst teachers keeping reptiles, right? We got Frabble House with her lizards, and now we got Tuttle with her turtles. Oh, well, probably just a coincidence, although I wouldn't be surprised if my least favorite one had a snake somewhere, but that's a story for later on. She was just kind of doing her thing. He was doing his thing. And then one day, they disappeared. And if you asked around, what happened to Miss Tuttle? What happened to Mr. DuCase? No one would tell you anything. It was as if they never existed. Completely airbrushed out of history. Well, a couple of us did some digging, and a couple of us asked the right people, albeit accidentally, and we found out exactly what happened. Those two, keep in mind, those two teachers at a very rigid, very conservative Christian school were having an extramarital affair. Miss Tuttle wasn't married, but Mr. DuCase was. and his daughter was one of his students. She was in the grade right below me at the time. And boy, yeah, she told us all about it once word broke. Not good. He was doing a lot of stuff, let's just say, with Miss Tuttle for 2 years, I think it was, 2 years. And then when he got caught, he ran away with her. And I don't know if he ever saw his family again, but boy, did that leave a scar on his daughter. I mean, honestly, how could it not, right? That's fundamental betrayal. Now, of course, like I said, Mr. DuCase never really cared about what Moralton High had to say. But Miss Tuttle, while she wasn't one of the most visible or most famous or infamous, depending on who you ask, teachers in the school, she was always considered to be influential and someone who was close to the inner circle. And she did this. She's a real stop frame, isn't she? Or I guess she's Blabberta. He's stop frame if we're going by genders, but if we're going by the roles, she pursued him when he was married. And really, they're both losers. I don't care which one's which. They both did a terrible, terrible thing. But isn't that funny? Someone that Moralton High paraded around as someone you should be like ended up doing this. One of the worst sins you could do. I think that fits perfectly with their whole track record, honestly. A bunch of people who pretend to be, pious, religious, all that sort of stuff, but it's all for show. It's like when Jesus was passing the Pharisees and Sadducees, and they were making a big deal about giving money to the poor or singing hymns and all that, but it was only for show because their attitude and their works, they didn't match. And so, yeah, Moralton High was full of a bunch of Pharisees and Sadducees. And if you think, though, that we students got out unscathed, no. See, I don't really remember who replaced Miss Tuttle. I think it was her friend-ish. I can't even remember. She had a really good friend teacher there that she always palled around with, and I think she stepped in. But who was going to teach speech and debate for Mr. DuCase? Well, we got Mr. Wilkins. Mr. Wilkins was insane. And I mean actually insane. He would discharge himself from the hospital because he didn't feel like going into hospital beds. Not kidding. He had a heart procedure, and then he just got up, left, and went to work one day. He was nuts. Talked about his underwear. He was talking about certain interests he had, so the rumor goes. I don't have proof of that one, but is it any wonder why he wasn't asked to come back next year? So that's the story of Miss Tuttle and Mr. DuCase. Some of Morrilton's finest, am I right? Well, this series has had a lot of negativity, a lot of really bad people with a lot of negative traits, and none of them really have any redeeming qualities. So before we get to the really bad stuff, I'm going to take next episode to talk about some of the best teachers. The ones that really made the school slightly more redeemable. If it wasn't for them, this place would have been on fire, trust me. So stay tuned for next time. We're going to talk about the Morrilton heroes.